put the perspective in the right area, uh, to just look at the basic requirements, if you uh, take the entire country as a whole, the first point which would come for anybody in mind is that you need to see the kind of initiatives which the government has taken. So again, there are different classifications in which you can look at the government. It could be the central government, it could be the state government, it could be the local government. So it is necessary to understand the initiatives. In fact, Mr. Satyarayana's presentation very aptly brought out the initiatives being taken by the AP state government. So similarly, there would be specific goals and objectives put forth by the respective governments. I think that becomes very important. It's also necessary to examine the maturity of the government programs so that it is suitable for adopting the geospatial solutions. Otherwise, we will be trying to push a geospatial solution which doesn't exist there. The next point is again the categorization of a particular solution into different types of solutions. It could be local, state, or central, which I already talked about. And of course, the data requirements in terms of preparations for you to really launch a geospatial technology. And again, there is a possibility whether there is a scope for spatial representation of the data or not. Certainly, based on these conditions, one need to look out for enterprise solution, the requirements, the sectors, and the levels at which one need to go for geospatial solutions. Then comes the potential use of technology, particularly when we are talking about enterprise. We need to look at what is the kind of technology you are going to really put in place. Is it going to be a geospatial technology in the form of space-based data? It could be in the form of ground-based information. It could be even aerial flying and things like that. So obviously, the potential of use of technology comes in there. And of course, one need to tailor-make the solutions so that you have customizable solutions when you look at the possibilities of taking geospatial technology. Now, what is the scope for geomatics or geoinformatics in such areas? Obviously, Earth observation stands possibly on the top because you have the possibility of capturing near real-time information about what's happening on the ground. We do have, luckily, the geostationary constellation, the orbiting satellites in the LEO orbits, as well as the aerial platforms, which will provide regular information on Earth observation, which can be put onto the base map, which already would have been prepared for you to do various types of geoinformatics solutions. Of course, the maps derived from EO and the field surveys play a major role. Local specific information with respect to the use of the geospatial technology comes in handy, and attributing the geolocation-based information in the form of non-spatial data, which will be pushed into the spatial domain. And of course, the outputs in form of geospatial models and queries become very, very important, which automatically leads you into the spatial decision support system. So taking the previous slide and this particular slide, you will be able to really look at each one of the requirements of the government enterprise and how you really position yourself with respect to the geospatial technology so that you provide the kind of solution what is required for the government. The next couple of slides, possibly, I will take you into the specifics, but certainly I would not stand and spend more time on these, but nevertheless, it is important that we look at different sectors, how the geospatial technology can be helped for the government to adopt it in different areas. If you look at the broad thrust areas, it is a country like ours, which has about 70% of its population in rural areas, really need to look at the rural development and agriculture as a focus. Obviously, people are talking about smart cities, eco-friendly cities, so urban development comes into the picture. Environment and forest becomes a very, very important area where the geospatial technology plays a very major role, and Panchayat Raj is becoming very, very popular today. Obviously, Panchayat Raj becomes very, very important. Geology and mining, of course, the atmosphere, climate change, and ocean studies. For all these kind of sectors, of course, there are many more sectors which possibly I'll be addressing, but when you look at these thrust areas, it is necessary for you to have an institutional arrangement so that you have the geospatial technology at different levels which would be addressing the solution. At the same time, the integration of industry and enterprise for the solution so that you address the thrust areas through the technologies with the right kind of institutional arrangements. Now, if you look at the agriculture itself, there are host of needs, but certainly I would say the crop forecast becomes very important, which obviously depends on the weather information, and you need to have a strategic arrangement to have both the geospatial technology as well as the weather information well correlated so that you have the right kind of information available for the farming community. In addition to that, you need to have a good tab at the entire country's level on the soil property and its capability. You need to have the regular information of soil moisture, and of course, the drought assessment, which comes as a creeping disaster on most of the occasions. If you look into the forest and environment, of course, today the country does a lot of things. The Forest Survey of India is quite active. It produces the maps every 2 years on the status of vegetation in the country, but nevertheless, there are a lot more things to be done. These are the typical areas where both in the forest and environment, there is a big need as far as the government is concerned that you need to address these sectors in different ways. And all these needs varieties of geospatial inputs, both from space and from ground, so that you are able to address them in a meaningful way. Especially when you look at the environment, the air and water and the atmosphere becomes very, very crucial. In fact, the Environment Ministry looks at solutions specifically with respect to the air pollution, the water pollution, and the kind of atmospheric problems we are facing today. Obviously, you one need to look at the newer technologies and newer areas and leading us into an enterprise solution. Of course, desertification is another major threat in many of the areas, which needs to be very closely monitored, and the kind of land degradation we are looking at in our country, plus the important areas of wetlands, the snow glacier, as well as the coastal zones. The important area of the country today is assets management, assets database, which is a very, very crucial one. Many of the ministries need this particular data, be it urban or rural. It is becoming a major problem today. And here is a big area where the industry can play a very major role, both from high-resolution satellite imaging, the crowdsourcing data, as well as the ground-based field information, which needs to be put into one geospatial platform that could be used for planning and management. Particularly the multi-sectoral development which is taking place looks for huge amount of assets data for development, both in the area of rural and urban. A typical example is like you have a good urban information available in the urban areas. You can always plan for an interesting the tourism as well as utility information system. We can all ask questions. How many of our cities do have this kind of tourism information system, which is a huge potential today? Obviously, the answer will be very, very few. I think India needs to look at this area in a big way so that we can do some kind of a spin-off wherein you have the utility information for the government, as well as the same database could be used for the tourism information system for the public. Obviously, you can also look at a municipal GIS with similar kind of a very high resolution data. If you look at some of the service sectors, it is necessary for us to look at these areas very closely. For example, there are a lot of tribal areas in the country. There are isolated tribal areas and tiny habitation, which government tries to look at, but it doesn't have information other than textual and tabular. You need to bring them onto a geospatial platform. For example, there are small hamlets with hardly 50 houses. Do we have maps of this? No. We have difficulty in getting these things. Obviously, you need to use typical information which allows you to bring those things onto geospatial platform. It could be schooling information. It could be taking them into a tele-education program. It could be into district level programming, particularly where displacement takes place when mining comes into the picture. These are typical requirements which are coming into the area of the government planning, but they don't have access to geospatial platform for us to provide these information. So obviously, it becomes an important requirement. Geology and mining, of course, I have a host of things. I wouldn't like to get into the details, but certainly the area of mining, the mine dump, the petroleum exploration, the natural gas-related activities has multifarious inputs coming in, and which needs to be used for varieties of exploration. Obviously, there is a major role again coming in from the geospatial platform, which allows us to play a very significant role. Obviously, the enterprise solution plays a very major role in these. Water resources, and today we are talking about Clean Ganga project. It's a major area. Again, enterprise solution is a must. We have problems related to reservoir sedimentation. It could be command area studies. It could be various other related activities which we are looking at. But Clean Ganga mission becomes a very major initiative in this particular slide, which needs specific attention, and government is really looking out for information from various sources, including the geospatial community, which needs information. So the entire Ganga basin needs to be studied in detail for the kind of pollution we are talking about, and geospatial solution has a tremendous potential, and business enterprise plays a major role in that. Rural development. We have major flagship programs today which talks about Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. It is, again, the rural employment guarantee schemes. It could be the preparation of assets and registers at the planning and monitoring level, wherein local government can look at some of these things in addition to the watershed development program. So rural development plays yet another major role, where it's a huge sector where we can position ourselves with respect to the geospatial technology, and obviously everybody need to look at what kind of solutions we can provide from the enterprise. These are some examples of NRSC, what it is already doing as far as natural resources management is concerned, in the multi-scale mapping of land use, land cover for the entire country at different scales and different resolutions. But that possibly can address some of these areas which I talked about. But when you move into the other areas like communication and information technology, Mr. Satyanarayana was speaking about this particular area, and he has been the secretary of this particular ministry earlier. I'm sure he has a lot of experience in this. But what I understand, as far as telecommunication is concerned, there is a major requirement for bandwidth. Obviously, bandwidth, both from space as well as from the terrestrial towers. So there are requirements where you need to understand where strategically you can position a tower for completing your communication links. There are many villages today in the country which are not connected at all. So you need to have those areas where you need to bring in the connectivity. So first of all, you need to understand where is the connectivity, where are the towers, where are the gaps. You need to do this assessment. Obviously, you need a very good geospatial database so that you can address those things. Of course, Digital India is one major flagship program which has been talked about already, and there are solutions possible. If we are able to achieve the Digital India, there are hosts of technologies and tools that could be put through so that you can reach out to the common man, to the last mile also. So here again, there is a requirement for a combination of terrestrial, the optical fiber, as well as the satellite communication technology to be integrated so that you have a Digital India, number one. And once you have a Digital India, it is necessary for you to have a citizen-centric solution which could address both urban as well as rural. When you're looking at rural, obviously you need to reach out to the panchayats. So the geospatial technology for panchayats is being talked about today, and Panchayat Raj institutions are looking at these solutions, which ISRO to some extent is addressing it, but ultimately for you to reach out to all 6 lakh villages today, it is obviously, it is a big mammoth goal, and there is a requirement for enterprise solution even there. Disaster management and emergency response. This is one of the crucial areas which the Ministry of Home Affairs talks about. It is required at the highest level to have a first-hand information about any disaster taking place. Obviously, you need to have a network from national to state level and state down to district level, and particularly the hotspot of the disaster itself. So this particular slide talks about the kind of hierarchy you need, the kind of connectivity you need, and the kind of geospatial data which need to be flowing both from upwards as well as from bottoms up, so that all information at all times is available for the disaster management. This is an example of just 2014 disaster, what we see from space. These are the number of districts which got affected quite badly, and we are seeing this kind of a situation almost on an every year basis. We have, last year itself, we have produced something like 112 flood maps just in these areas. In addition to, of course, whatever we talked about, Hudhud and other solutions which we tried to provide. Crowdsourcing from Bhuvan is one example which we are trying to put forth in a big way. It is helping many disasters, and there are quite a few examples like Pylon itself was a major flood inundation disaster which we took up from space, and you are able to see these kind of maps flowing on the Bhuvan in the near real-time basis, wherein every 12 hours we are able to map out geospatially these information and put out in the public domain for not only for the common man to use, even for the ministry to use it for various rehabilitation measure or other reconstruction measures, which we have seen both in Hudhud as well as in Pylon. And certainly we did the similar kind of a thing in JNK disaster as well as in Uttarakhand. Here is an example again where Mr. Satyanarayana was the main focus for this. We worked with them in a big way. We were able to integrate our portal with a portal which was developed just in about 2 days. In just 2 days, one major portal was developed, and we integrated our inputs into that, and we were able to reach out to the common man. And you'll not believe, just in 2 days, through crowdsourcing, we were able to get something like 25,000 ground information on what really is happening on the ground. And this is the real use of technology when you're looking at flooding and cyclone coming and hitting us in a major way every year and year after year. Election Commission used the technology, both web-based technology as well as the mobile-based technology in a very meaningful way in mapping out about 69,000 points, polling stations in the entire AP, the integrated AP then. And we were able to collect a huge amount of information through this particular portal, which is again an example of deciding to use it, and get the solution in a short time. So these kind of examples are there, which can be tapped by large number of enterprise in a big way for seeing to that we help out the government in various ways. In fact, we are doing yet another very unique program for the AP State Housing Corporation, wherein they are trying to map out the entire AP for housing. And here we have about 2.7 million points mapped out just in about 2 months' time, or even less than a month time. Basically, it is geotagging of houses, which would have multiple uses for the government for varieties of activities which government would like to have on the housing-related activities for the entire AP. And the whole thing is on geospatial domain, and all the base data is available, and the entire data is being collected through voluntary organization through a simple mobile smartphone technology. So as simple as that, and you have the entire data on your portal. So these kind of things are of big use. Today, NRSC is making its own attempts to do the empowerment, but I feel it is not enough. We need to have a large participation of business enterprise to see that we move into that area where we are able to integrate ourselves and provide solutions in a meaningful way so that the country gets benefited in all respects. Thank you very much.